Hello, dear listeners. My name is Rose Goldthorpe, and I am the creator of this audio drama. I would like to welcome you to our second season of the Wessex Dramas with an adaptation of Thomas Hardy's romantic comedy, The Hand of Ethelberta. As with all romantic comedies, her hand is in hot demand, and her choice of who to give it to is also in hot debate, so loosen up your corsets, cozy up to the fire, and let us catch up with the drama.
Ethelberta comes in at the main door, talking to a middle-aged woman. Another middle-aged couple follow behind and then neigh. The first woman smilingly shoos Ethelberta up to a big statue of Milton and indicates excitedly that she is to read from the small book which Ethelberta has in her hands. Ethelberta smiles, stands leaning back against the tomb and starts to read aloud. The others deploy themselves nearby to listen, with Nay passionately either staring at her or around the church while she reads a brief poem. The group then scatters and goes to inspect the other tombs. Ethelberta goes out to the churchyard and Nay follows her. Ladywell comes in at the main church door looking around for his party, which he fails to see as they are scattered. Ladywell goes and sits in a pew waiting. Nay re-enters the church and walks past Ladywell, not seeing him. Nay is emplacing a partial rosehead in his pocketbook. Ladywell sees this and stands up, revealing himself to Nay suddenly. Nay starts back and rapidly closes the book, scattering some of the rose petals onto the floor. Ladywell comes out of the pew to join Nay, looks at the petals, and good-naturedly wags his finger in fun at Nay, baiting him regarding romanticism. Nay shrugs embarrassedly. Ladywell asks where the others are, and Nay indicates with his head and turns to take him back outside to the churchyard. They step out of the church into the bright light and walk towards the tower at one end, meeting Ethelberta as she comes around the corner. Ladywell looks surprised, but Nay explains that he had forgotten to explain that Mrs. Petherwin was to come. Ethelberta looks like she is recovering herself after being angry with Nay. She is wearing the remains of a large rose in her corsage, but nearly all of the petals are missing, just leaving two behind on the calyx. Ladywell sees the rose, and his jaw drops. He looks at Nay aghast, and Nay looks away. Ethelberta says hello and shakes Ladywell's hand, while glancing annoyedly at Nay. The older married woman now joins them, nods to the men, and takes Ethelberta's arm, steering her back into the church.
Now, my dear, I must tell you. Run along, Alfred. I have something to tell Mrs. Petherwin.
Yes, Aunt.
He takes Ladywell, who is still shocked at his supposed discovery, back into the church.
A friend of my husband's, Lord Mountclear, has been dying to meet you for some time. He has been to many of your performances at Mayfair Hall. When will you dine with us to meet him, dear?
Ethelberta looks a bit disconcerted, as her father is, unbeknownst to Mrs. Doncaster, Mrs. Doncaster's butler.
Oh, thank you. At your house?
Where else, my dear?
She sweeps Ethelberta indoors. Picotee and Ethelberta are sitting at the table which is laid for dinner, and they have their soup before them, which they start on. Joey is just leaving with the tray in his hand.
I'm going to go down to the kitchen now, as Gwendolen has made me an og's pudding. I'm glad I don't have to eat them thin veggie messes as you two do.
Oh, Joey, I am.
I knows you am.
No, I mean that you have to say I instead of...
He rushes out.
That boy will be the ruin of us all.
They continue with their soup.
That's not the worst of it. He's in love with Mrs. Doncastle's new maid now.
Mrs. Doncastle's? But that's Father's house. Besides, he's not 13 yet, and she must be double his age.
I don't think Father knows, or he'd have stopped it.
I'll talk to Father this evening. I'm going there to tell him I'm to dine there anyway.
To dine there? At Mrs. Doncastle's? Gosh. Father will be right there, at the table, you know. How I should like to see you sitting at a grand table among lordly dishes and shining people.
She puts down her spoon in excitement.
Oh, do let me come and sneak a peek at you, Berta.
Ethelberta smiles.
We'll talk about that when I come home this evening. I must hear what Father says.
Picotee resumes eating her soup.
I've never even seen a real dinner party in my whole life.
I can tell you, Pixie, that it isn't that much fun, trying to shoehorn 10 courses down whilst being tightly corseted and having to smile all the while.
Picotee looks doubtful and slowly shrugs.
Still.
There is a knock at the door, and it is then opened by the knocker, a woman in black. She comes in, closes the door behind herself, and unwraps her head veiling. Ethelberta comes forward and kisses her father, Mr. Chickerell.
Why, it's Berta. Hello, pet.
Can you sit with me a few minutes, Father?
I'm all right for 10 minutes or so. Anything happened?
Oh, no. All's well. I just wanted to have a word about a couple of things.
Ethelberta sits down after removing her coat, and Chickerell sits back in his chair.
Fire away then, love.
Well, first, Joey has got to be stopped. He's taken to courting Mrs. Doncastle's lady's maid.
Good grief, the woman is old enough to be his mother.
Yes, and she'll worm all of our secrets out of the foolish boy.
Well, I'll soon sort him out. And the other thing, love.
Oh, just that. I accepted an invitation to dine here. A Lord Mountclair wants to meet me. He probably wants to marry me, or something similar.
Marry? Or similar? Lord Mountclair? I know that man's valet. I'd sooner see you in your grave than married to a reprobate like that.
Ethelberta stands up and puts her hand on his shoulder.
Don't worry, Father. Really. I'm not marrying anyone just at present. Tell me, though, are you all right with the idea of my dining here?
She puts her coat on and resumes the veil. Chickerell gets up as well, and they move towards the door.
Oh, that's all right, my girl. I like to see you getting on in the world. I want to see you happy.
Ethelberta smiles and kisses his cheek. Chickerell opens the door, and then, suddenly, a young woman throws a heap of clothes at him as she rushes past, in the corridor outside. He catches a heap of clothes, including a long, trained muslin gown and a blonde wig.
Hello, Mr. Chickerell. Sorry I'm late, but could you just take this stuff upstairs and be ever such a sweetie?
She rushes away.
Good heavens! Who was that?
That was Joey's intended, Mrs. Menlove.
Who? Oh, no! Not Janice Menlove?
The very one. She came a fortnight ago.
Ethelberta face palms.
Oh, this wretched woman was my maid at Lady Petherwin's, and is a very fiend of curiosity.
Chickerell chivies Ethelberta out.
Don't worry, love. I'll cut this off at the root. Courting at 13, the very idea.
Ethelberta turns to him and kisses his cheek again.
I wish I was just plain old Berta Chickerell at the cottage with you all. Again, Father.
Chickerell pats her shoulder as he sees her out along the corridor to the servants' entrance.
We've all made our beds and we've all got to lie in them, Berta. Don't fret about it. Now, off you go.
He kisses her cheek then, and she smiles and turns to the door.
Good night, Father.
Ethelberta is being dressed by Picotee, who laces up her rear-laced stays and hands her the petticoat, outer skirt, and then bodice of a peacock blue gown. Picotee then dresses her sister's hair, putting it up with combs and flowers, all the while talking with her sister.
And then, at the end of the letter, Faith said that I must go down and visit them when they're settled at Melchester. Mr. Julian is now playing at the Abbey Church there, you know.
That'll be very nice for you, Picotee. We must take a little holiday soon, as a family, as well. I'm getting worried about the children, who are now looking quite worn and pinched with London living. I'm thinking of going to Knowlesea.
Why Knowlesea?
Our aunt, at Rouen, wants me to get a copy of her baptism registry. Mother, being born the year after her, doesn't know, of course, which of the parishes around Knowlesea your aunt was born in.
Oh, Knowlesea is only a little distance from Melchester.
Gwendolen, Joey and Father would take care of Mother. I would really welcome being able to slip away from acquaintances here.
Would you?
I'd actually like to go and see our aunt in Rouen after Knowlesea. Poor auntie. She's always repeating her invitation.
France. Abroad.
Ethelberta is now dressed, and she stands and picks up her fan, reticule, and little evening jacket, which she puts on. She looks magnificent as usual. She sees Picotee looking wistfully up at her from a tub chair and smiles.
If you really want to peek at us, you can, silly. Get along and ask Father how. And if that wretched Menlove woman gets to you, don't say a thing, and come away as quickly as possible.
Picotee leaps up.
Oh, yes, Berta! I will. Thankyou.
Ethelberta picks up her skirts and sweeps out, followed by a delighted Picotee. There are 3 people at the far end of the hall talking among themselves as they stand on the threshold of the salon door looking in. One of the ladies is adjusting her long evening gloves. The front door knocker sounds, and the butler, Mr. Chickerell, answers the door to his daughter, Ethelberta. He looks at her with a mixture of glee at the situation and with fatherly pride.
Excellent timing. Just about half of them are here, love.
Ethelberta smiles affectionately at him.
Mr. Ney?
Not here yet.
Lord Mountclair?
He came absurdly early and is as nervous as a boy.
Ethelberta nods, biting her lip a little absently.
Keep up your spirits, dear, and don't mind me.
She smiles.
I will, Father. And let Pixie see me, will you? She wants to see the outfit she helped me put together. And all the other ladies too. She'll be here shortly.
Chickerell nods and chivies her in a kindly manner towards the salon threshold. Menlove is escorting Picotee along the top hall from the back to the front of the house.
I'd much rather not bother you and wait for Father.
Oh, lor, your father'll be busy for hours now, so I'm showing you. You're Mrs. Petherwin's maid, ain't you?
Yes, I'm...
I used to be hers too. Terrible flirt she was.
No, she's not.
Menlove shrugs. They arrive at the top horizontal banisters looking down on people coming into the salon. There are now around a dozen people in full evening dress. Menlove and Picotee kneel down and peep through the banisters. Menlove points.
That's Mr. Ney, that is. Do you know, I overheard him say that a woman and her maid went out to check on the size of his estates the other day. They were all laughing. I'll bet that was you and Mrs. Petherwin, wasn't it?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Go on. You can tell me.
No.
Picotee stands up.
I'll go and look for Father.
Menlove stands up.
Ugh, no need to be uppity. Look, we'll go and peep through the doors of the dining room. Follow me. Shh.
She turns and goes back the way they came, and Picotee follows her, a bit reluctantly. She's having misgivings. Ethelberta leans back into Picotee's bedroom through the French windows from the roof leads outside.
Well, come on then, Pixie. You'll miss the sunrise.
Picotee is looking for her other slipper. She finds it, slips it on, and then climbs up onto the chair that takes her out onto the leads. The girls sit with their back to a roof wall and their legs drawn up.
Oh, I wasn't sleeping anyway. It's too hot.
Oh, good. Well, was that Menlove there? And did you see me?
Oh, yes and yes. I don't like her, you know.
Did you see Lord Mountclair?
Yes. It's dreadful how fond of you he is. He was staring up at you the whole time. Ugh, I wouldn't have him for the world.
Why?
He's at least 65.
So?
And he shuffles with bandy legs and he laughs like this. He.
Picotee, you shouldn't ape people.
Picotee face shrugs.
Besides, Lord Mountclair said, when he heard I was going down to Knowlesey, that he was attending a meeting of the Imperial Archaeological Association at Corvesgate Castle, which is nearby. He asked if I would join them. I think that I may, you know.
I wrote and told Faith Julian that we're going to Knowlesey. I'm writing every week now. It's so nice to have someone to write to, and I get to hear what she's doing. And Christopher.
Mr. Julian. Did you see Mr. Ney? Mrs. Doncastle's nephew?
Oh, yes.
Well, he asked me to marry him. What do you think?
Yuck. I wouldn't have him either. Menlove said he was telling some other men that a woman had been chasing him and checked out the size of his estates.
He didn't name names, did he?
Apparently not. But the men were all laughing with him.
Huh. Oh, they were they? Well, I wasn't keen on the idea anyway. But that does it now.
She gives a big yawn.
All those poor starving horses in a knacker's yard. Yuck, Berta. Surely you didn't seriously think of it.
Ethelberta gets up.
No, you're right.
She stretches.
I think I'll just get another couple of hours sleepy-bys. Give me a shout mid-morning, Picotee. Huh?
Picotee gets up stiffly.
All right, Berta.
She leans her cheek forward for a kiss, which Ethelberta gives her, and then they climb back in at the French window. Knowlsea is a pretty townlet lying between two headlands. A seaman's cottage lies on the slopes above Knowlsea. Most of the village is separated from view by a small orchard outside of the house. There is a small lawn, however, before the orchard. From the parlour, where you can hear the chirrups of children and the friendly roar of the captain, one can see the little sails of yachts on the sea between the scant orchard trees. Ethelberta is at the dining table with the three young children, Emmeline and Picotee. She is dressed simply in a light linen V-necked dress and has her hair simply dressed back in a plait on the nape of her neck. Ethelberta is busy doling out porridge from a vast bowl to the children, and Emmeline and Picotee are trying to mitigate the worst of the children's table manners. There is an enormous painting of a ship on the wall behind Ethelberta. Captain Flower is holding the door handle prior to exiting.
You be all right then, my dears?
Oh, yes, we're fine. Thank you, Captain.
There's cream, as well as milk to fatten up the little ones, and eggs will be coming shortly.
This is really very kind of you, Captain. Don't worry, we're really quite comfortable.
The captain goes out.
Oh, he stole my sugar. No, I didn't. I had it first.
Emmeline leans over and takes the contested sugar bowl off them before it spills, and she remonstrates with them. Ethelberta gives the final bowl of porridge over to Picotee for handing to the children, and then attends to doling out Picotee's bowl and handing it to her.
I've decided to go to that meeting at Corsgate Castle today, Picotee. So, do you and Emmeline take the children down to the sands?
All right, Ethelberta. What about lunch?
Oh, I've arranged that Mrs. Flower will put us up sandwiches and such every day, so we can go jaunting.
Ooh, lovely. Will do, Berta. I'd much rather go play in the rock pools than follow some old fuddy-duddies around while some lecture-type drones on.
Well, I was rather hoping that it might be more fun than that. I can't walk all that distance, though, so I'm going to rent a donkey. A brougham is far too expensive. We need the money for the holiday.
Picotee suddenly makes a grab for a little girl who is manhandling a big jug of milk and about to spill it. Ethelberta smiles, starts on her own porridge, and peers out at the sea. Ethelberta looks splendid in her wide-skirted light linen gown, dark little jacket and pale straw hat with matching ribbons, while riding her ass. It is a beautiful summer's day and she is enjoying herself. She rides along the wild shore and then up a little path onto the Barrow Downs. She rides through these small undulations in the sward and comes eventually to Corsgate Castle, which she remembers from her childhood. Ethelberta rides under the gateway into the outer ward and then through into the inner ward. There is no one there. She dismounts and ties up her ass to a stone projection. Ethelberta looks around and, seeing no one, rambles off amongst the stonework, becoming occupied with the architecture. Ethelberta hears talking and comes out into the inner ward to see a party of ladies and gentlemen around her ass, laughing at her.
Perhaps escaped from a local cottage.
One of the richly clad ladies pats the ass on its nose. It is a sad, sorry-looking old ass with a frayed, tatty saddle.
Oh, the poor thing has strayed from its owner.
Sir Cyril Blansbury takes another swig from his hip flask.
Probably sick of being beaten by some bare-ass peasant.
Lord Mountclair looks up and smiles at the sight of Ethelberta approaching. She carefully doesn't acknowledge the poor ass. He walks towards her and takes her hand.
Mrs. Petherwin, I did so hope that you would take up my invitation. Welcome, my dear, welcome.
He turns to the knot of extremely well-dressed people and waves airily and points, while Ethelberta smiles and nods.
I'm sure that you recognise Sir Cyril and Lady Blansbury, Mr. Richard Draconian, the member for South Wessex, Lady Jane Joy, and the Reverends Taylor and Tinkerton. Oh, and Mr. Nye, Dr. Yore, who is just going to give us his paper, and I'm sure that we all know the renowned Mrs. Petherwin, the poetess.
He points to Dr. Ure, who is nervously rustling some papers, and then Ethelberta, who nervously sees Nay and quickly shifts her gaze away.
Now, ladies, if you would just sit on the grass, and you, Mrs. Petherwin, please, and then we gentlemen can all admire you as if you were a bed of the most exotic flowers.
The ladies sit down together, and the gentlemen then sit around the outside of them. The Marquis, Lord Mountclair, whose nearby footman deploys a cushion for him, sits down arthritically as near to Ethelberta as he can and smiles at her. Dr. Ure stands before them and launches forth upon his speech, waving his arms around at the edifice, solemnly and pompously. The ladies do indeed look like a bed of flowers in their summer silks and muslins, with their fans and parasols. Dr. Ure's droning becomes one with the droning of the bees and chirping of the grasshoppers on this hot day.
That was an episode of The Hand of Ethelberta. We would like to thank our miraculous editor, David Harris, and our dashing composer, James Cox. And of course, we would like to thank our entrancing cast. Matthew Libbury, Alex Davenport, Carl Wharton, David Memel, Marion Chase, Mike Keane, James Makepeace, Glenn Hanna, Lucy Kennedy, Stephanie Stephan, Catherine McCooligan, Stephen Dean, Jenny Dyer, Caroline Joy, Thomas Purchas Rathbone, Jenny Bowden, Victoria Knowles, Mac Maguire, and Nathan Walker. And last but not least, thank you to you too, dear listeners, without whom this would not be possible.